I shouldn't be alive. Last night I boarded a cab. I had just returned from a church program. I still had my Bible in hand and the anointing hovering over my head. Before we continue with the story, do not forget to click on the notification button in order to get notified at every new video posted. Thank you. I stopped by to see a friend who had recently relocated to town. Bushfeller, as I used to call him, was back in the country. Sei and I was the best of friends, but that was until life happened and we went our separate ways. Sei insisted we meet at an open park where people usually have picnics and get together. He was so excited to see me and we sat together and talked extensively. We reminisced about old times and laughing over a couple of shared jokes. Time flew by so quickly and I still had to return home. Checking on my wristwatch, I observed that it was getting late, so I told him I needed to go home. He offered to drop me in his tinted Sienna car. Even the smell inside was brand new. I was amazed that I could easily ride in a big car like that one. Added to that, it was a free ride. I was happy. At least I was going to save my transport. In the car, I observed the passenger seat wasn't available. Seems like he was watching me because he quickly told me without me asking that he took them off to pack his property. We drove a couple of miles, then came to a stop. It was rush hour due to traffic. We stayed in the same spot for close to 2 hours, not moving, but still catching up. When we got to the point where we got locked in, he asked me if he could use a shortcut, to which I agreed. So he drove into a lonely road which had no street lights. Nobody was on the road either, and after about 15 minutes drive in, the car began to jerk. With every jerk, the car would stop and my friend would start it all over. This went on for some time. Then the car finally stopped. The road was deserted. The fuel had dried up, and the only sounds I could hear were nothing. The air was still, and even the crickets were not creaking. At that point, everything got scary. My friend saw my gulp of fear, but assured me that he knew someone in the area who sold black market fuel. Black market fuel in this kind of place, I thought. It was a road I had never plied, very unfamiliar. Premonition hit me, but I chose to ignore it. Say suggested I wait in the car while he went to get the fuel, and I agreed. After he left, I wound up the windscreen and stayed inside the car. 30 minutes later, my friend wasn't back. I decided to go out of the car and access the road and the environment. Everywhere I looked, I felt like someone was walking towards me. I took a walk and saw a white signboard with the inscription, "The Best Morgan Funeral Services." I came face to face with a mortuary. I began to imagine the worst case scenario and tried to swallow saliva, but I couldn't. I don't know where that smell came from, but it smelled awkward. It was weird. My legs got cold and I suddenly developed a stomach ache. I felt my head swell and chills rose on my skin. I was about to retrace my steps when someone from the mortuary, whom I couldn't see, called out to me, asking what I was doing there at that time. I tried to explain to him, but he told me if I knew what was good for me, I would run away from there. He said that the road was a dead end and that it didn't lead anywhere. I didn't wait for Sei. I began to run even before he could say more. I ran as fast as my legs could carry me. I ran past the car when I heard him call me, asking me to stop running, that he had brought the fuel. He was coming out of a bush path. He had no clothes on. At that point, I couldn't get close to him. I was scared. When he noticed I was scared and would not come back, he began to laugh. Then he told me there was no point trying to run, that I had come to the end of the road. He looked over my shoulder and nodded as if giving a signal to someone. I followed his gaze and looked behind me. That was when I saw 5 hefty men with machetes. At that moment, I recalled my friend answering a call earlier and saying he only had one customer that would pay well for this business. I began to connect the dots, like how he asked me if I came alone. He was probably trying to get into my head to know if anyone knew where I was at that time. My feet got weak. I begged for my life as they came close on me. Back in secondary school, Say had told me that by hook or crook, he would make money, even if it meant him doing human rituals. I thought it was just part of childhood fantasies. My life flashed before my eyes. My breath quickened, then hitched. This cannot be happening to me. Regret filled my heart as I wish I had gone home right after the church service. Now I'm going to die because of greed. Greed to eat bushfallers' money. It was in the midst of these thoughts that one of the men came closer and struck the first blow with a machete straight into the middle of my head. It was that shock that sent me back to reality. I had slept off watching the movie Squid Game. It was so scary I watched it in the dream world. Turns out I had created a plot in my head.